Chapter 2, or Lesson 2 of the Road to Moral Courage, identity can trap you, but integrity will set you free. Kareem is an Arab-Irish teenager. He lives in Libya, and he's having serious issues with faith. He tells me that there's far too much hate against Jews and Europeans in his school textbooks, and he wants me to support him as he struggles with how Islam is being practiced. Of course I support him by introducing him to another one of my readers, Fatima. Now, she's a faithful Muslim living in Abu Dhabi, and Fatima is a fan of my work for one reason alone. She says, I give it up to God. Now, here's what she means. We shouldn't let others, be they teachers, clerics, or even parents, define our personal relationship with God. You know, authorities will always try to tell you what you are and therefore what you ought to believe. And they'll also tell us that the purity of what we're supposed to believe depends on us accepting a particular identity, their identity. Well, Fatima and I, we don't play on those terms. We don't focus on identity. We focus on integrity, the wholeness, the fullness that comes from loving your real self, and by extension, loving the majestic God that created you. In other words, integrity can liberate you from the suffocating confines of identity. But it's not just integrity of the self that matters. If that's all that counted, we'd be flirting with narcissism. What also matters is integrity of God's creation, the wholeness of God's creation. And that's why it is vital to understand that even supposedly Western ideas like freedom are in fact universal. The celebrated American writer Henry David Thoreau took inspiration from Eastern spirituality. Few generations after Thoreau, an icon of Eastern spirituality, Gandhi, took inspiration from Thoreau. Later still, King took inspiration from Gandhi. And today, all of them are in some way inspiring young reformist Muslims from Morocco to Iran. What a testament to the power of human integrity over tribal identity. In this chapter, I also tell you the story of how Prophet Muhammad himself, with God's help, developed the moral courage to expose the corruption of his own people in Mecca. So the Prophet trekked the uphill path to integrity, and in that way freed himself from group identity. But a lot of Muslims don't want to hear these kinds of stories because it challenges their own purity of identity. Well, we've got to use these stories to show God's children that we betray God when we cave to the identity purists. Because remember, any God that is worthy of worship is not so petty that he manufactures widgets and automatons and robots. A magisterial God creates uniqueness in each of us. And so we pay tribute to God's uniqueness when we express our individual uniqueness. This takes independent thinking, ijtihad. It takes moral courage.